Sitting is resumed. It's time for questions to the Executive Office. I call Joanne Bunting.
Mr Speaker, before I call my question, from the banners on your door I would indicate congratulations are in order. Happy birthday to you. And question 1, please.
And can I also concur, Brahla Hunadich, Concordia, on your special birthday? Do you want to tell us what age you are today? Okay, well, our focus on delivering meaningful and impactful strategies that will result in delivery across the community and sectors in need. In developing and delivering on our strategies, our work aligns with best practice, including co-design and co-production. The focus in the programme for government has reform and transformation of public services at the core of its work, with a new delivery unit at the heart of ensuring that executives' priorities get the focus needed to bring about lasting change and improvement. We have in place an Office of AI and Digital, which will embrace new technologies and also help us to improve efficiency and effectiveness. A tangible even example of this is in the delivering of the End Violence Against Women and Girls strategic framework, and that work in which our officials work collaboratively with all departments and stakeholders to understand the issues, where there are gaps in provision, and then, most importantly, how we can improve the experiences of women and girls. We're going to continue to work closely with the Department of Justice and Health in terms of aligning our work with that of the Domestic and Sexual Abuse Strategy, and work with key partners such as the PSNI and councils to deliver more effectively and efficiently, ensuring that there is no risk of duplication. The collaborative and coordinated approach across departments and within the Executive, with a priority accorded to innovation and reform in delivery, will continue to ensure that strategies are delivered in a focused and meaningful way.
Ms Bunting.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The EPOC team did a piece of work that showed that the number of strategies, for example, relating to paramilitarism, was something like 89, and that didn't cover all of the departments, nor is there a centrally held list of strategies. A recent report to the Justice Committee indicated that elements of one strategy took so long to implement that, due to lack of resources and failure to agree who was the lead department, that it was completely superseded by other strategies. Given the extreme budgetary pressures faced by Northern Ireland, could I ask the First Minister what can be done by her department to make government more cohesive, reduce duplication, and to have departments pulling in the same direction and thus getting a bigger bang for the taxpayer buck?
Minister.
Well, just to say, I concur with you that we need to ensure that we do everything efficiently and that we do align where we can and that we break down the silo mentality that's always existed. In terms of across all the departments, there are some really good examples of how to do that, and there are obviously lessons to be learned as well. I do think that we've made a good start in terms of having a programme for government going to be aligned hopefully with a 3-year budget. I think that the priorities that have been identified in the programme for government will also allow us to be more strategic and aligned. And I think that in addition to that, you have the introduction of AI and digital, and I think that we have an opportunity there to do things more efficiently and better there, and perhaps that will be an opportunity for us to look at all the different strategies that we have to make sure that they're fit for purpose. Every department will have their own strategies for different reasons, but you've cited an example yourself of perhaps where there are numerous strategies, and I think that there's always an obligation in each department to ensure that they're fit for purpose and they do what it says on the tin. So I think that I'm certainly happy to take away actually the general point you make to see, is there any opportunity, particularly with digital and transformation, is there any opportunity for us to look at the number of strategies that we have across all of the executive departments?
Carl McCillian.
Concordia, August Brahla Hunadich Fossa. Again, I'd like to welcome or wish you a happy birthday. In response to Joanne Bunting's question, First Minister, and she mentioned and you responded in terms of the ongoing strategies. One of the long-term commitments by the Executive goes back to 2010, and that's about the building of Casement Park. Can you advise if the funding for this and indeed other projects was raised at your meeting with the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer?
Yeah, thank you for that. And yes, we had a wide-ranging discussion with Keir Starmer on Friday. Both the Deputy First Minister and myself raised the funding issue more generally in terms of the need for proper funded public services. We made a case very strongly, as we do on each occasion. I also did raise the issue of Casement Park once again and the need for this to be delivered upon, the fact that it is a flagship project of the Executive and one of the stadia that's still to be built. We look forward to the comprehensive spending review, and I hope that at that occasion we will see the commitment that's been made by the British Government delivered upon, so that we can get on with finally building Casement Park and ensuring that it brings all the benefits that it will do to the wider community in West Belfast, but also to GAA and sport more generally. And I think that this is something that we're going to continue. I'm certainly going to continue to prioritise in terms of all of my engagements. I can also say that I raised the issue with the Irish Government last week also.
Kelly Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll join with others in wishing you a very happy birthday, and thank you very much to the First Minister for her answers so far. Minister, given the fact that the strategies are cross-cutting in nature, what role can the Executive Office provide to ensure that appropriate development and resourcing of strategies, for example like the anti-poverty strategy or the LGBTQIA strategy, is being carried out across all departments?
I think that we have a role now with the TEO delivery unit. I think that could be a focus in terms of how we might align a lot of these strategies and actually ensure that the group that we've established, that they will actually look at everything in the round. I mean, all these strategies that come forward, you only have to look at the violence against women and girls strategy or the domestic sexual abuse strategy. All those things are cross-cutting by nature, and a lot of them are a result of collaboration across departments and ministers. Can we continue to do better and improve and be more efficient in those things? Yes, I think we always have room for improvement, but I do think we've got the right building blocks now. I think we've got a programme for government with 9 executive priorities. We've got a delivery unit established. We're going to look at digital and AI and the role of all of that. The first time in a long many year, we're going to have a 3-year budget, so it allows better planning into the future. So I think those building blocks are the right building blocks in which we can actually do and improve how we actually deliver things together. We want to weed out duplication where it occurs, and we want to really, I suppose, complement each other across departments in terms of the work that we're doing. So I think that there are opportunities for us to do better into the future.
Alan Chambers.
Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
With your permission, Mr. Speaker, Junior Minister Riley will take this question.
We have set realistic targets and timelines for delivery against all of the 9 priorities within the programme for government. We have already seen real progress. From March 25, over 15,000 children were registered for the childcare subsidy scheme, and when combined with tax-free childcare, it is estimated that these working families will have saved nearly 17 million over this period. The scheme will be extended to include school-aged children, which will benefit families further. These targets will be monitored on a frequent basis by officials within the department, including the newly established delivery unit, the scientific unit and the AI unit. We'll also collaborate across all of the other departments to make sure the progress is being made against the priorities. A programme for government subcommittee of the Civil Service Board has also been formed, which will drive forward delivery through a single point that will have a strategic focus, as well as scrutinising, supporting and monitoring and ensuring good governance. We also have a wellbeing dashboard that tracks long-term wellbeing at a population level, and this will be updated continuously as and when the new data becomes available. We'll also be keeping track of delivery and publishing an annual delivery report, and this will also allow us to consider whether projects and programmes are being delivered on time and within budget, and what more we need to do or what we can do differently for projects to be as effective and as efficient.
Mr. Chambers.
I recently submitted a question to your office regarding your assessment of a part of the programme for government. The question was rejected, and I was advised to address my query to the particular minister who had written the part of the programme I was referencing. Is that the policy of your office in regard to questions about the content of the programme for government, and is there a danger that that could lead to silo mentality?
Well, I actually haven't seen the question you have submitted, but I'm happy to take that back and look at it.
William Murphy.
And I'd like to thank the Junior Minister for her answer. Would she agree with me that the PFG represents a vital commitment by the Executive to collaborate in enhancing the lives of all those we represent?
Yeah, yes, I do agree with that. The programme for government reflects the shared ambitions of this executive. It's been designed to make things better for people in areas like health and tackling waiting lists, our environment, growing a globally competitive economy, providing more social, affordable and sustainable housing, building safer communities, ending violence against women and girls, and so much more. This will require a sustained whole-of-government commitment if we are to deliver the real and positive difference in the lives of people, families and communities. There will of course be tough financial challenges, as simply put, we don't have the level of public finances that is required. Our shared focus is to make a real difference in improving people's lives, and that's why our commitment is to maximise on delivery. And for my part, I will continue to deliver the positive change that people want to see on the issues that matter most to them and their families.
Paula Bradshaw.
Chair and others to wish you a very happy birthday. Junior Minister, you mentioned in your original answer there around this annual report on delivery. Given we've less than 2 years left of this mandate, do you not feel that that is too long a period between these reports being published? And also, if you could speak to how the targets could be potentially amended where it's seen that they're not actually delivering for the constituents. Thank you. Minister.
Yeah, well, I think it's right that coming up to the annual, well, I think, February will be a year of the programme for government, and as I said, we will publish an annual report on that, because the programme for government, it needs to be reviewed yearly, and that will give us the opportunity to make updates in line with, for example, budget decisions. It'll be monitored on a more regular basis than that in order to measure progress against our priorities, and the wellbeing framework will be updated throughout the year as and when the data becomes available.
Jan Forsyth. Or sorry. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, and I didn't get a chance to earlier on, but I can add the opposition's good wishes to you on your birthday. I know the opposition, unlike one of the executive MLAs, would not dream of naming the number, but happy birthday to you in any case. Junior Minister, can I ask? It's been said that the PFG is a critical delivery tool for the programme for people's priorities, but can I ask then why the budget, which we voted on last week, commits only 2% of the entire executive budget to PFG priorities?
Listen, I think we're all under no illusions that the executive is working within incredibly tight financial constraints. Communities are feeling that pressure every single day, and so is our public services, but that doesn't mean that we sit back and that we do nothing. If anything, it makes the need for joined up collective action even more urgent. The programme for government gives us a clear plan to deliver on real change, and we all have to have a part to play in that, right across departments, all ministers, and most importantly, the people on the ground who know where the gaps are and how we can best close them.
Mr. Speaker, following the Supreme Court judgment on the definition of a woman, does the Executive Office now have an agreed position, and what impact will this have on the Ending Violence Against Women and Girls strategy?
Minister.
I think just on a general point that this issue has to be approached with compassion, understanding and dignity. We will await the guidance of the Equality Commission in light of its consideration when it comes out later on this month. But I think regardless of how people define themselves, every single person deserves the same love, equality, respect and compassion that we claim to strive for on behalf of everyone. And I want an inclusive society based on equal rights and opportunity for all of our citizens. And I want people in this chamber and beyond to remember that we're talking about people here, we're talking about human beings. These are our brothers, our sisters, our family members and our friends. So please remember that, because your language is so important.
Jerry Call.
So as you stated, the end of violence against women and girls was a priority in the programme for government. Can you detail, beyond the local change fund being rolled out through councils, what dedicated funding exists for families and women in emergency situations seeking to get out of those dangerous situations?
Minister.
I think just from the outset, in terms of the actual detail of all the groups, I'm happy to get that for you, but I will say that the groups and the organisations on the ground who are working with women fleeing domestic violence, and particularly in violence against women and girls, should be commended, and they do stellar work. But I'm happy to come back to you with a list of those groups and the funding that they're receiving.
Now the real Diane Forsyth.
Please, Mr. Speaker.
Bodies, including non-departmental public bodies, are established to deliver public services, to provide expert advice or to regulate sectors at arm's length from ministers. Whilst they operate with a degree of independence from government departments, they are obviously accountable to them. Those which currently fall under the remit of the Executive Office align with the TEO strategic priorities. Departments have been conducting their own reviews of arm's length bodies in line with the New Decade New Approach commitment and their existing sponsorship and governance requirements. The findings of those departmental reviews will inform next steps, and the introduction of a public bodies bill to facilitate departments making any legislative changes will be dependent upon the completion of the departmental reviews of the arm's length bodies and the decision of the Executive to an agreed approach. The timing of any such legislation will obviously be subject to prioritisation by the Executive.
Ms. Forsyth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and again wish you a happy birthday. I thank the First Minister for her answer today, and I look forward to hearing the response from the different departments following their review. But with over 120 arm's length bodies and quangos across Northern Ireland Public Services, we see a lot of costs of back office functions, running boards, duplication of finances, requirements for individual accounts and audit services. Would the Minister have any idea of what the cost of that is within her own department?
Minister.
Thank you. And you've referenced a number of departments or bodies that we have under our own. There are 12 actually under TEO, some of which we actually have reviewed. Corsica, Commissioner, SIB actually recently had a review, and we're working our way through that also. And there's a number of bodies actually under our own remit. For example, Historical Institutional Abuse Board, which was established to ensure the payments were made to victims and survivors, and that will obviously come to an end sometime soon. So that will, once all the payments are fully disclosed, then that will obviously come to an end. And then you have the Victims Payment Board again, open until August 26, and then that will start to see a wind down. So there are a number of bodies even within our own remit that are there that will actually change. But I think we're going to have to come back to this whenever all departments have reviewed their arm's length bodies. And I suppose the one thing that I would say is that given the unique political context here, I think that maintaining independent oversight bodies is vital, I think, at times for public trust. So there are different reasons as to why you have different bodies, but I think there's a good piece of work underway now in terms of reviewing all of this.
I thank the Minister for her answer. Does the First Minister agree with me that it is essential for public confidence that all departments, arm-length bodies and non-departmental public bodies live within their budget, and where this is not the case, that action must be taken?
First Minister.
Yeah, thank you for that question, and I suppose, yes, I do, to state the obvious, but I think that after more than a decade of Tory austerity that's being followed through by a Labour government, I think has caused such huge challenges to our public finances, the detriment that we see every day across our health system, education and all other public bodies. But that's why we've been working to try to get our finances back onto a stable footing, but also why we must protect the public funds that we have, ensure that they're used to the best effect that we have. And the reality is that where that doesn't happen in our non-departmental public bodies, then ministers will have to take action. And I welcome the fact that the Infrastructure Minister, Liz Kimmins, actually has asked or has engaged forensic accountancy services to investigate, for example, reasons why NI Water has been unable to live within its resource allocation for this year, because it's important that we get to the bottom of these things. It's important that everybody is efficient whenever we're dealing with limited finances, but our objective clearly is always going to be about ultimately having maximum accountability and transparency whenever it comes to public expenditure, and importantly, obviously that's what the public would expect us to do.
Mr. Speaker, and can I add my good wishes to those expressed to you previously on this day, your birthday. And further to that, can I ask the First Minister that, given that each department is a separate legal entity, free within reason to set up arm's length bodies and non-departmental bodies as it sees fit, what role did the Executive Office have in implementing any efficiencies in this regard? And if it has none, then is that not another strong case for reform?
Yeah, I think that in terms of the Executive Office role, I mean, you're right, each individual department has its own remit legislatively in terms of setting up different bodies, and in some ways that is important also. But I do think that as an executive as a whole, if we want to look at being efficient and actually transforming how we do things, then we have to look at this in the round. So this will be an executive discussion for a bit further down the line, particularly whenever all departments have conducted their own review. But I think when it comes to any of these bodies, they have to be relevant. There has to be strategic relevance for why you actually would have a body in the first place. You have to avoid duplication, and you have to maximise efficiency. You have to have public confidence and independence, and the point I made earlier around trust. Trust is very, very important, particularly whenever it comes to the performance and accountability of some of these bodies. But the member will be aware we have some of these bodies because of the political context and the fact that we need to engender public trust and oversight for some of this work. But this is something that definitely will be revisiting as an executive.
McGrath. Thank you very much, Mr.
Speaker. Would the First Minister agree with me, and certainly my role as Chair of the All-Party Group on Youth Participation, that regardless of the numbers of these bodies that we have, that there aren't enough young people represented on them? By young people I include those right up to the age, like the Speaker, and around 30, that would be able to give their views on young people's perspectives on these boards to help them be more responsive to the needs of young people.
Thank you, Mr McGrath. First Minister.
One would fear that you're trying to curry favour with the Speaker with that comment. But yes, in general, I do think that more young people coming forward into public life, shaping these bodies, shaping how we design policy is crucially important. And again, my best example that I have is around the end violence against women and girls and the role that young people played in that also. But if we're going to design policies and strategies that actually deliver upon the needs of the public, then they need to be inclusive in itself. That process needs to be inclusive in itself. So in a general point, yes, absolutely, more young people with more ethnic minority backgrounds, more people that actually reflect the society we live in will always lead to better policy and decision making.
Declan Kearney.
There is no agreed position on this issue.
Mr Kearney.
Thank the First Minister for that answer.
I note in your response that there is no agreement within your office on this issue. However, it is the democratically expressed will of this Assembly that voting rights should be extended to citizens across the island to elect the Irish head of state. Do you therefore agree, First Minister, that the extension of voting rights in Irish presidential elections for Irish citizens living here in the North should be taken forward as a matter of priority by this Irish Government?
Yes, I absolutely agree with that, and I thank the member for bringing this very issue to the Assembly Chamber for debate just a short while ago. And I think, the outcome of that debate and the vote that was put in this Assembly Chamber certainly was decisive in terms of the support of the elected members of this chamber in terms of voting in the presidential election, which will happen later this year. This is obviously my personal view on this, but I actually took the time then after that debate to actually write to the Taoiseach to inform him of the fact that this was something that was endorsed here in this Assembly Chamber. And I think that it's time for the Irish Government to certainly correct what has been a deficit in terms of our democratic right to vote in this election. And I think that we encourage and continue to encourage that the Taoiseach moves to rectify what is an anomaly in terms of Irish citizens in the North. The fact that you can stand for election in the North but you can't vote in that election, I don't think that's a tenable or credible argument. It's 12 years beyond now the Constitutional Convention that was held when participants at that convention overwhelmingly endorsed the extension of this franchise, and it's my view, and now the majority view in this House, that this is something that needs to be endorsed in terms of the extension to citizens who live here in the North.
Philip Rep.
The First Minister may have seen polling published today in the Belfast Telegraph that asked for the priorities of nationalist voters in relation to the work of the Assembly and the Executive. Not a single person mentioned the issue of presidential voting rights. Does the First Minister agree that the Irish Government, with their rejection of this proposal, are more in tune with the electorate of Northern Ireland than you are as First Minister?
Sure.
I'm afraid that the member is ignoring the reality that we had this very debate in this chamber, and the majority of the elected members of this chamber actually voted to call on the Irish Government to ensure that we do have voting rights when it comes to the presidential election. The President of Ireland, which includes us citizens who live in the North.
Mr. Speaker, and I'll join with others in wishing you a very happy birthday. I'm sure there's nowhere you'd rather be. The question for the First Minister. Voting rights for Irish presidential elections is a matter for implementation by the Government of Ireland, not this Assembly. But can the First Minister confirm that as a matter of fact, the motion passed by the Convention was for voting rights for all Irish citizens, with no specific requirement for them to be resident on the island of Ireland, and that it is this which brings it into line with common practice in the EU and elsewhere?
Minister.
Yes, the member's right. That was what the Convention considered. I was just referencing in terms of what we had voted on in this chamber, but yes, you're absolutely right. It is about all Irish citizens being able to vote for their Uachtaráin.
Justin McNulty.
Mayor with Ceann Comhairle, Breha Honna Ditch. That's happy birthday to you. Christ a Coog.
First Minister.
We have consistently raised this issue during our engagement with all levels of the British and Irish governments, and this afternoon we'll also go on to meet with the Minister for Communities for further discussions following his recent engagement with the Secretary of State and the GAA.
Mr McDonald.
First Minister, Casement Park, which you said will be built on your watch, has been in limbo for well over a decade. And while there seemed to be an improvement in the mood music over the weekend with your executive colleagues' attendance, the Communities Minister attendance in the Boxit Athletic Grounds for Armagh's All-Ireland group stage victory over Derry, progress has been scarce. When you raised Casement Park with the British Prime Minister, what capacity and standard of stadium did you push for? And will the new Casement Park be capable of hosting international sporting events as well as being a home stadium for Antrim Gaels? And when will it be built?
So we have to put every bit of energy and effort that we have to ensure that will be built. This is an executive flagship project. I am determined to see it over the line, and I'm determined to work with all partners to ensure that that is the case. I hope that the Sports Minister, the Communities Minister, got a sense of how just important it is to Gaels right across this island to play games in their own stadiums, and how important, and I'm sure he got a flavour of that at the weekend. But I am absolutely determined to ensure that we get movement on Casement Park, and that means working with the Minister, that means working with the British Government, the Irish Government, the GAA, and all partners who are committed to ensuring that this project gets over the line.
Does
the First Minister agree with me that it's long past time for the British Government to state what their funding contribution will be for the redevelopment of Casement Park?
First Minister.
Yes, I am. I'm calling constantly upon the British Government to let us know exactly what it is that they're going to do to fulfil their political commitment to building Casement Park. It is going to take all the partners working together to ensure that it is across the line. I mean, we missed a huge opportunity in terms of the Euros, not being able to play, have our part in all of that, and the economic benefit that would have brought to us all. But as the member knows, the development of Casement Park is a flagship priority for the Executive. It is something that we are committed to. It's a long overdue home for Ulster Gaels, and it is now time to get it built. I can say that I am determined to continue to work with everybody to ensure that the funding contribution is put on the table so that we can get on with actually building the project. Let's get Casement Park built.
John Buckley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First Minister, with tens of millions of pounds projected overspend on the original cost of the redevelopment of Casement Park, and with public infrastructure and public services at serious financial strain, could the First Minister outline to the House which public services would you cut to ensure its redevelopment on a scale that the GAS suggests? Hospitals, schools or education?
You see, it's not a binary choice. We can do good public services and we can invest in our sporting infrastructure. Casement Park is long overdue. It's the remaining stadium that hasn't been built. It's a commitment across the Executive. It's a commitment in the programme for government, and it will be built.
With
your permission, Mr. Speaker, Junior Minister O'Reilly will answer this question.
While we do have equality legislation that protects citizens from less favourable treatment, we recognise that there are differences with other jurisdictions, and we are committed to addressing any gaps. We will bring race relations legislation before this Assembly in 2025-26 to strengthen protections against racism. We are also considering bringing forward protection against age-related discrimination in relation to goods, facilities and services. And both Junior Minister Cameron and I recently met with Claire Sugden on her private member's bill. And I just want to thank Claire for taking the time to meet with us on this and for continually championing and advocating for our older people. We also welcome the work of the Executive Office Committee on their inquiry into differences between our equality legislation and other jurisdictions, and we will consider the findings of the report when it is available.
Ms McLaughlin.
Mr. Speaker, can I add my congratulations and formally welcome you into the club. First Minister, we are falling far behind Britain and the South on equality protections. That's unacceptable in 2025. Will you be bringing forward any legislation in this mandate that will close those gaps?
Well, Gormaga, and I thank the member for the question. As I have said, we will be bringing race relations legislation to this Assembly in 2025-26. But on a more broad point, I suppose when we're talking about equality, it's not just about ticking a box. It's a core principle of how we need to shape policy and build communities, and we're absolutely committed to addressing any gaps, as I've said already. And I also welcome the work that the Executive Committee is also doing that. No one should feel that their identity, background, culture is any less entitled to dignity or opportunity. We have to be proactive when we're addressing inequalities. And we need to work, again, what I'll say is we need to work together across departments, we need to work with each other in this chamber, and we need to work with communities and to make sure that nobody is left behind when we progress with any equality legislation.
Moving on to topical questions, call Matthew O'Toole.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First Minister, your colleague Owen O'Brien has today put out a press release saying that the Irish Government has shown, quote, a total lack of urgency in relation to housing and critical infrastructure. If that's your party's view of the Irish Government's performance in Dublin, can I ask how you would rate the government you lead in the north?
Okay, so I haven't seen Owen's comment, but suffice to say that all governments need to do better in terms of housing, in terms of infrastructure investment. Unfortunately, as you know, at this moment in time, there are 2 jurisdictions across this island, a devolved assembly with limited powers who's been starved of resources for 14 plus years, and a government in Dublin that is failing in terms of the housing agenda. So I think that we have targets in the programme for government, and we are determined to try to deliver upon them.
Mr. O'Toole.
Mr. Speaker, the reason I ask First Minister is that your party is making robust criticisms. Perhaps many of them are legitimate about performance in the south, but when it comes to social housing, the Chartered Institute of Housing today warns there could be a £100 million shortfall in social housing investment. There is no plan for investing in wastewater. In fact, a denial from your colleagues that there's even a problem. There are chaotic, contradictory statements on the delivery of the north-south infrastructure. You mentioned the lack of fiscal powers here. Your colleague, the Finance Minister, doesn't seem to want to take any new fiscal powers. So can I ask, First Minister, why the contradiction, why the difference between the robust way you hold the government to account in the south, but the idea that you simply want people in the north to accept inaction and drift?
Minister.
Well, to work in reverse, I don't accept your last comment at all. It's not about inaction, it's about trying to deliver upon the programme for government commitments that we have within the limitations of a devolved space. And I am surprised that you don't understand the difference between the 2 jurisdictions, unfortunately, that exist on this island. But until we work towards the point where we can unite across this island and unite the people for the betterment of public services, of better health, better education, better infrastructure, we're stuck with the deal that we have. So we have to continue to fight against the austerity agenda that is being continued on by the Labour government in the aftermath of 14 years of austerity. Our public services are on their knees here in terms of that outworking of this jurisdiction that we are now live in. So I think it's important that we continue to fight for good public services, and if you're in any doubt, we continue to make the case for additional fiscal powers, have done for quite a long period of time. As a matter of fact, it's my colleagues that have actually stood up the Fiscal Commission, actually brought forward the arguments for why we need more fiscal powers and why we need more levers, why we need to invest in our infrastructure after all the years of austerity. And we're absolutely committed to doing that and to building more homes, more social and affordable homes. But we need a proper funding model, and I actually, instead of just talking about it in this chamber, I actually put that case directly to Keir Starmer last week whenever I engaged with them around the funding model for this place, that it's not fit for purpose. And what we want to see in the comprehensive spending review is a fair funding model, a 3-year budget that allows us to plan for the future. But what we have to recognise is that we have been underfunded, but we are making that case, and as a matter of fact, you and your party colleagues joined with the rest of the executive parties on day one to make that very case.
Guy Middle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First Minister, given the widespread concerns, including those raised by the Chief Constable and the Police Federation about the declining number of PSNI officers and the impact that this is having in terms of delivering essential policing services, does the First Minister personally support the need for additional PSNI officers as indicated in the Workforce Recovery Plan? And if so, what particular actions as First Minister are you taking to secure additional funding for the PSNI?
Well, we do support, as you know, within our programme for government, we've made commitments around this whole area, and we do support the PSNI in terms of needing additional numbers, but also to have an appropriately funded justice system as a whole. I think that's very, very important. We also know the significance and importance of neighbourhood policing and how important it is to ensure that those officers are close to the ground and engaged with the local community in which they serve. That's the best way to build community trust and confidence and going forward. So we have continued to meet with the Chief Constable. We also continue to meet with executive colleagues around prioritising budget decisions in the aftermath of the CSR.
Mr. Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I thank the First Minister for her response. First Minister, has the Executive, through your offices, undertaken any assessment as to the impact of the reduced policing numbers in terms of good relations within Northern Ireland, particularly in light of sectarianism and hate crime attacks, and what we can do as an Executive to try and address those scourges within our society?
I'm not aware of any particular pieces of work apart from to say that within Good Relations Fund and T-Book funding, usually that's all done in conjunction with partners, including the PSNI. And obviously whenever it comes to good relations, looking at where things are, not least some of the things we've seen over the past couple of days in terms of sectarian intimidation of families, then all needs to be done to ensure that is not the case, and we continue to make that case to our own department in terms of what we can do around building good relations, but also to challenge the PSNI around what they're doing to tackle sectarianism in society.
Harry Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First Minister, in a few weeks Northern Ireland will host the 153rd Open. How does the Executive intend to capitalise on the event for the long term?
But yes, we are going to host the Open, and what a great opportunity that's going to be, I think, for us. And actually, as a matter of fact, later on today, and all of the MLAs are invited to, we're hosting the Claret Jug here in Parliament Buildings, just to really start to, I suppose, tap into what is a huge potential economically for us in terms of tourism, in terms of the sporting event itself. I just think that there's so many opportunities that will come from this. The tourism, we're a lovely place to come and to visit, and I think people will see that whenever they both tune into the Open, because we're told there's huge number of people that will tune in. Actually, 150 countries will have a broadcast of the Open itself, and the economic benefit is 213 million, so that's huge. And that Open's just one of many other events that we host here, and we do very, very, very well, and I look forward to being able to build upon that and to have the ambition to reach for even more of these big international competitions.
Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, First Minister, and that leads on to my next question. Opportunities like the Open, the Giro d'Italia and other events undoubtedly put us on the map. Is the Executive actively seeking to attract other sporting events? Thank you.
So all the executive colleagues will be interested in this. Obviously, our Communities and Sports Minister, our Economy Minister, ourselves as a whole executive. I mean, I think we've demonstrated whenever we had the Giro that we can host these big international events. So I think that's something to be built upon. And in terms of what we're chasing right now, I think we'd have to look into that a bit more. But certainly, the Open is where we're focused for the next period ahead. But we have to reach for all these opportunities that we have. We missed an opportunity with the Euros because we weren't part of that bid. That was a missed opportunity for a great investment here. But look, let's continue to celebrate what we have, which is great, whether that's the GA Ulster final, whether that is rugby, soccer, whether that is the Northwest, which I went for the first time recently, the motorbike racing, whether that is then the Open. The tourism potential that we have here is immense, and we should maximise it right across the island.
Blair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This Saturday, I, along with other members, will join the recently formed Friends of Poland group here in Parliament Buildings to discuss, among other things, the role the Polish community plays in Northern Ireland and how integration of that community can be built upon. Can the First Minister commit the Executive Office to assisting the Polish community and other ethnic communities in Northern Ireland, and give any indication of action underway to help in that regard?
First Minister.
Well, I want this to be a great place for everybody to live and to be comfortable and to achieve their best. So whatever I can do to help, whether it's the Polish community or any other communities, then please feel free to knock on my door and let me know what we can do, or where perhaps we're not doing enough. I'm more than happy to engage with the member on that.
Mr. Blair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the First Minister for that answer. And can I add in addition to that, if it is not the case that a racial equality strategy, including ethnic equality monitoring, an update to the Race Relations Order 1997 and an international relations strategy and Europe strategy are key to delivering for those communities and all communities, and can she give us any indication of what progress has been made on these?
Yeah, so we're working our way through them. As the Junior Minister had said earlier, we'll be bringing the legislation around the Race Relations Order very soon in this political session. We will also be moving to publish the Refugee Integration Strategy, hopefully in the next number of days. We are working our way through the international strategy. Just it has to be refreshed given everything that's happening globally. There's certainly a very fluid situation. So I'm determined to get these things published and allow us to do everything we can to build this society to be an inclusive society, a welcoming society, somewhere that everybody feels comfortable and has their space. And it's going to take a combination of those strategies to actually make it happen.
Jerry Carl.
Minister, I want to ask for your assessment of the recent clampdown on Palestine solidarity activism over the last week or so, involving at least two constituents of mine, Liam Obe from NECAP and Sue Pentel from the IPSC. Would you be concerned about the restriction of the right to organise and people's right to express themselves politically with these arrests and attempted charges?
I remind the First Minister about the sub judice and contempt of court issues that may be involved in this issue, so please respond.
Okay, thank you. Mindful of that, can I firstly send solidarity to both parties that you refer to? I think that highlighting genocide, highlighting the inhumane slaughter of defenceless citizens is not a crime. That's certainly my view, and I send solidarity to all those protesting and calling for an end to the genocide in Palestine.
Mr. Carl.
Speaker, and I agree, thank the Minister for her answer. Maybe the problem was the individuals didn't have a letter from Jonathan Powell. First Minister, you said you met with Keir Starmer last week. Did you raise the case around Liam Ogue specifically with him? And if not, will you commit to raising the issue of him and other Palestine solidarity activists and how they've been clamped down and tackled and seemingly silenced over the last week or so?
Yeah. Again, mindful of any sort of legal proceedings or whatever, but I've made my point in terms of solidarity to both individuals, to both Liam Ogue and to Sue and Martin, because I think that anybody that goes out to raise their voice, rightly so in my opinion, in terms of calling for an end to the genocide in Palestine, is doing a good thing, because the international community is far too silent. The international community has failed to act, and the international community has failed to end the genocide in Palestine. I can tell you that I did raise that issue with Keir Starmer on Friday. I made it very clear that they needed to end their arms sales to Israel, and I made it very clear that they need to step up in a real detailed way sanctions against Israel, because to not do so is to be complicit in what they're doing.
Peter Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I wish you a very happy 40th birthday. First Minister, as my colleagues already indicated, this week is Polish Heritage Day, where we're going to recognise the contribution Polish people have made over the last 20 years here, who have been living, working, contributing and integrating into Northern Ireland society. Could the First Minister indicate to me what direct engagement her office has had with members of the Polish community?
I can't recall off the top of my head in terms of any engagement. I'm assuming that we would have met Ambassador when they came, certainly at a First Minister, Deputy First Minister level, or at a Junior Minister level, as we do all the ambassadors who represent our population here. But I can confirm in writing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, First Minister, for your answer. Given the First Minister's answer, would she commit to organising a meeting as soon as is practically possible with the Polish community leaders here in Northern Ireland to acknowledge both their contribution to Northern Ireland and also to explore potential areas for future collaboration?
First Minister.
More than happy to, and Junior Minister informs me that yes, they have actually met. So yes, but I'm more than happy to engage with all representatives of our community here. If we're going to make this the most warm, welcoming and inclusive place, then we need to engage their representatives, particularly when it comes to Consul Generals or Ambassadors.
Dan, to Tom Buchanan.
Mr. Speaker, Minister, the recent illicit poll talks released over the weekend showed overwhelming support in Northern Ireland for the Supreme Court's landmark gender ruling, with 72% of the general public in favour of that ruling. Minister, do you now accept that ruling, or are you still on the wrong side of the majority of people in Northern Ireland?
So I'm waiting the Equality Commission's advice. That's been my position in this House. That remains my position.
Mr. Buchanan.
I expect that Mr. Speaker, no answer forthcoming. But I'm going to ask another question that has been asked on 2 occasions prior to this, and there was no answer given. Maybe we'll get it today. Does the First Minister now agree that biological men should not be permitted to play women's sports, enter ladies' toilets, or be placed in female prisons? A simple answer, yes or no.
So it's not a case that I didn't answer, it's the fact that you don't like the answer. So let me repeat for you. I'm going to await the Equality Commission's advice and guidance, and I think that everybody in this House would be minded much better to be a bit sensitive to this issue, to try to work our way through it in terms of the Equality Commission advice, and also that there's consistency across all of the departments.
Dan Dodds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First Minister, you will be aware of allegations recently by a former PSNI officer known to us as Sean. Sean has since withdrawn those allegations, saying that they were made up and entirely false. Do you accept this statement from Sean? And will you encourage young people from the Roman Catholic community to apply for and join the police force of Northern Ireland?
First Minister, briefly, please.
Thank you. Can I just say, I don't know the ins and outs of the case, but obviously people should be factual whenever they are making a claim. That's important. And it's also very important that the police service is as inclusive as society that it represents. And trust and confidence in policing is also crucially important. And all those component parts need to be right in order for people to have faith in the police service. And I have already been to a recruitment thing for the PSNI, and I do call on people to join the PSNI.
That ends question time to the First Minister. Members, take your ease.
Sorry, Carol, that's the...
Oh, you're grand.